Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Hello, this is Jamie from LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, and we're talking technology today. There's no shortage of it, that's for sure. Remember, Jerry, when the pandemic started, and I remember all these tech companies were being so generous, and they were giving all of their resources, their tools for free. But there were, and then some people got smart and started compiling them in spreadsheets. I mean, it was well over 1,000, and it was great, but it was almost too much, right? You don't need that many. And I think people got overwhelmed of where to start. It was tough.
Yeah, it is overwhelming. It really is. But our guest today is one of these people that can help us with that. Holly Clark, I have followed her for years. And a few years ago, I was able to meet her in Topeka, Kansas, and we got to spend quite a bit of time together. We became fast friends because we're both excited about education, as you are, Jamie. And Holly just really helps teachers with that day-to-day, how to get in there and do it well. So Holly, I know you have so many things going on. Tell us a little bit about your company, a little bit about your history, and what's happening with Holly Clark today.
So thank you for having me. And yes, I've been doing this for a while. In fact, in the year 2000, a parent who was in my classroom at back to school night heard how passionate I was about technology and education. And I had done some stuff in computer labs, and I was going to take the kids to the computer lab. And I didn't know this, but he was probably one of the most famous people for tech that there is, one of them. And he came up to me and he tapped me on the back and said, "I really love how passionate you are. I'm going to bring you a computer for every kid. It'll be here tomorrow."
What?
And okay, no pressure. And so the next day, some e-machines actually came to my room, and of the people who had to put those into my room still probably don't like me, but they had to connect through an Ethernet cord all of the e-machines around the perimeter of the room. But when they got there, it had a note, and the note said, "Dear Ms. Clark, here's my contribution. Show the world what technology can do for education." And then again, I was like, no.
That's amazing.
So for 21 years, I've had a one-to-one classroom or been involved in some way with a one-to-one classroom. And so like a lot of the things that I talk about come from that 21 years of experience. But one of the great things that happened to me that year is I was teaching in a place called Menlo Park. And it's right smack in the middle of where Apple execs live and Google execs and all of these people. And so when I did stuff with my students online or with these computers, my parents were 100% behind me with like pom-poms saying, "Try it, do it, I don't care." And everyone else, when they get technology, they often have parents. And I even heard this today in 2021, not today, but 5 days ago in another city. A student told me that a parent won't let her kid record on Flipgrid because she just doesn't want to have her thing online. And I'm like, that's 2021. And people aren't letting kids do that. And I never had that problem. So it made this kind of storm that other people haven't been able to do. I got these one-to-ones. I had parents cheering me on. And so I was able to do things in that year and the years that followed that helped me be able to talk to teachers now about their new one-to-one classrooms.
So Holly, what grade were you teaching, just as a point of reference?
7th grade. Yeah.
Seventh grade? Yes.
And it's mostly been middle school. And then when we went into remote teaching, I do most of the stuff. I'm out at school districts, I'm helping, I'm keynoting. But when we went back into lockdown, I went and co-taught with a teacher here in San Diego, because remote teaching was like my Olympics. I was like the David Phelps, or the whatever his name is, Phelps of it's Mike Phelps, whatever. I was like, let me in. And so I co-taught for almost an entire year with that teacher who, by the way, happened to be used to be my principal and had gone back into the classroom and was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And honestly, what we were able to accomplish in remote teaching is some of the best teaching I've ever been able to do.
Well, I'll tell you why, because risk takers make the best teachers. And it really takes, and I do a lot of coaching with teachers too. They don't feel comfortable taking risks. Why? Perhaps they don't feel supported by their administration. Perhaps they're just afraid. But when you let go and take those risks, well, first of all, your kids know more than you do anyway. So they're going to help you along the way. And I always tell teachers that don't worry if you don't know it 100%, because when you navigate it, your kids are going to be right there with you. And so when you have that, and then when you co-teach as well, Holly, like you said, teachers then kind of feel, as a coach, you say, we're all in this together. We are doing this together. We're going to succeed together. We're going to fail together. We're going to learn from our mistakes together. And when that ease comes on, then that risk-taking can take place. You have to feel comfortable that the people around you are going to support you. So that's just good coaching. And that's what helps teachers to be those risk takers. And it makes all the difference in the world. It really does.
It does. And also, I was at this place 5 days ago and it was in a state that didn't go remote. They stayed one-to-one in classrooms, and they were like, oh, I'll bet it wasn't very good. I'll bet there was a lot of learning loss. And I said, actually, let me tell you what happened. We didn't have learning loss. I had the best learning that we've ever had. Our test scores showed that we actually had growth. And now the teachers at this, almost in all of California, are savvy. They have a confidence now. The kids can go between Zoom and a Jamboard, and breakout room, and they're super savvy. And so actually, I think the learning loss happened in your face-to-face classrooms. And I said it in a very nice way, of course, but this got them ready for their future.
It is so true. It really is so true. I mean, there are so many, we've talked about the silver linings of COVID all the time. And that absolutely is a silver lining, because skills were developed in teachers and students and administrators that never would have happened if it weren't for the pandemic. So we all had to jump in, roll up our sleeves, and figure it out. And isn't that what life is all about? It's authentic. We have to, we were teaching, instead of spoon feeding, which often happens in a face-to-face, right? Spoon feeding the kids, we all had to figure it out together. And it jumped us forward in so many ways.
It really did. And Holly, I wanted to just comment on what you said. I have had a long history of virtual education, and every program that I've been involved in with the virtual education, our virtual students outscored our brick and mortars.
Wow.
There's something to be said there, and there's something to look at there. But people seem to put us into camps. Either you're in person or you're remote. And I think perhaps the answer is in the middle somewhere, blended learning. And I think that you are an expert in this area. And I also worry that people don't quite understand blended learning. Can you tell us what a really good blended program would look like?
Well, first of all, blended, as we know, so if we step back and define it a little bit, blended really is this perfect fusion. And that's kind of where my Infused classroom comes from, this perfect fusion of online and offline teaching. And that doesn't mean that we're just doing tasks over here online on our computers. It means we're doing some activities to interact with that information on the computer, but there's still offline teaching happening. And a lot of times I see people putting tasks into slides, and kids are going to do the tasks. And I've even heard teachers tell me, but the kids like the tasks. And I'm like, of course they like the tasks. They've learned how to do those. We need to do something a little bit more powerful inside of a blended environment. And that to me requires two things. It requires, number one, that a teacher become not just a pedagogist who understands teaching and learning, but now in 2021 and beyond, they need to become digital pedagogists. And that's understanding the method and practice of teaching that takes into account how the purposeful use of digital tools can empower student learning and outcomes, give every kid a voice, and allow us to create these meaningful learning experiences. And another thing that has to happen is that we have to not try and stuff 1985 into our Chromebooks. And that, I think, happened for some people with remote teaching. They were trying to like just come and be a talking head, and the kids would answer worksheets. And it can't be about that now.
What did George Perot say? He called it digitized, right? That's not what we're trying to do.
Yeah, digitized worksheets.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And I use this as an example a lot. People get Chromebooks and they say, oh, I've been doing multiple choice question tests, and everyone has to at some level. But now let me put those into a Google form. And that's not really what we're looking for. Taking 1985 and putting it into a Google form, and you think that you're integrating technology. Now, I know we have to do some of those. So here's what you could do. Just one little step different that would make it more powerful. And that would look like when they're done taking that multiple choice question quiz on Google Forms, come over to something like Flipgrid, explain to me everything you learned about that unit that wasn't on the test. And now record yourself telling me about that. Now I get a bigger picture of what my students know rather than this very limited, very outdated multiple choice questioning.
So authentic. Yes. The other thing I love about that is you can tell where maybe they're making some mistakes because you've really been given a light into their head to see what they're thinking.
Yeah. And we were talking about classic SAMR model, right? And sometimes it takes teachers to kind of go those stages, right? To get that comfort level. And then they realize, oh, this is really what it's all about. It's transformational. I get it. And it also, they realize, because blended learning is also about, getting that formative feedback from kids in better ways than just a worksheet, right? In more ways like a Flipgrid, where you're kind of getting that lens into what they do and don't know. And then it drives your instruction where you can do small group guided groups or individual stations, but somehow taking what they do know and then making it into that face-to-face. So gathering data with the digital and then making it personalized with a face-to-face. So, so many different components to blended, but I think you kind of really simplified it in just how you described it, which makes it all the difference. Teachers sometimes feel like there's so many different things. There don't have to be so many different things. You're using them for a purpose. And that's the key.
And people ask me all the time, I need some resources, or I need a science lesson because we just got Chromebooks. And I'm like, no, you don't. What you need to do is what you were doing. Maybe if you were doing a slide deck of information about plant and animal cells, you throw on a pear deck so kids can interact with the information. But the one thing you need to do in 2021 that might look different is you need to do something I call press record. Every day or every week, you should be having students use Flipgrid or Seesaw or Screencastify or Book Creator that has that record option. And you should have them talking about their learning.
Metacognition.
Yep. And if you can tell me about your learning, you've learned it, number one. But let's step back a second. I know we're teachers and I know we love our subject area and I get all of that, but we're all in this to get students ready for not college, but for a job. College gets them ready for a job as well. So what they're going to do is sit across the desk or across a Zoom screen from someone and have to articulate in well-chosen words why they're the best for the job. And when we don't have them speaking about their learning, we don't have them building their speaking literacies. And so that's not good. But we also need to have, we know that you can't be a good reader and a good writer unless you are also good orally. There are anomalies to that, like Helen Keller and what have you. But if you are not articulate and you can't think about the word choices, you are not also going to understand the word choices that you're reading. You're not going to see the underlying subtext of all of that. So we've got to work on that speaking literacy. And we haven't done that because in 1985, classrooms were like this, shh, be quiet.
Right. Rows, right. It's teaching is the highest form of learning. So why not give kids that opportunity as well? I remember when I was teaching, I also taught middle school. I taught mostly middle school science, but I did teach math for 4 years. And I don't remember what I was teaching, but I remember standing up there talking about something, explaining something in my mini lesson. And then all of a sudden I sat there, I thought, oh my gosh, I had that Vygotsky aha moment. I made a connection between one mathematical concept and another because I was articulating how to do and why should I be the one who gets to have those aha moments? Kids need to have those opportunities too. So it's about those, communication skills, getting kids to talk about their thinking, that metacognition, and they get to have those aha moments as well when they're doing that. It's so important. And we also, a lot of teachers think, well, I don't have time. Where do I fit that in? Oh my, that is what the core of your class should be. So, breaking thing, and I mentioned before, small group instruction, that opens up your day because kids are doing multiple things. You can have kids working in pairs and small groups, teaching each other a concept. They can be doing the Flipgrid, as you said, in their little Flipgrid tent or some other little section of the room, right? So there are so many different things that can be happening simultaneously. And then you walk away thinking, wow, look at everything that just happened. So that small group instruction is really an important part of that blended learning to get all of that in at the same time. Get away from that sage on the stage, right? Get away from that whole group. You need a little bit of it, that mini lesson. But beyond that, they just need to talk. They need to have the opportunity, the space and the time to talk and share and think at the same time.
Absolutely. And Holly, as we talk about all of these innovations, I have always seen you as a futurist and someone that really can look forward to the future and kind of give us a roadmap. If you were our Secretary of Education, where would you want us to go? What would you say?
I would, well, as a person who taught before No Child Left Behind, I would want our things to go beyond multiple choice questions and standardized tests. I do think we need to know where kids are, but there are other ways to gather data. So that would be something I would look for in the future. I would also make sure that every school had a one-to-one. After the pandemic, I think we're probably at something like 95% of schools are one-to-one, but there are 5% not. That's an equity issue. That is all kinds of things happening there that are inappropriate. And if you are listening to this and you are in a school district or that doesn't have one-to-one, you've got to question your leadership. And I'll be the brave one to say it. Something's going wrong at your leadership level. And that person should be removed if you do not have a one-to-one in this environment. Where our kids are going to graduate in the 2030s, they're going to go into retirement in 2080. So their work life is going to be from 2030 to 2080, and it's going to be digital. And if you don't have digital devices, getting kids ready for their future, it's a leadership problem, period. And it's
prices are down, right? Like you said, cost should not be a fact. Prices are down. And it's just about, as you had mentioned, Jerry, too, allocating it. I mean, taking the priority, and that's where it needs to be. Yep. Get rid of those textbooks. Take your textbook money and put it into the digital resource. It's not that difficult because textbooks are outdated by the time they're delivered to the front door.
Yeah. Or your copy budget. Tell people that's what I said when I wanted to get this for a 5th grade group of teachers. I said, I'll get you one-to-one Chromebooks, but you cannot go to the copy machine except like this many times. And they're okay. And I saved money buying them Chromebooks over the copy budget, which you guys know, the copy budgets are in millions and millions of dollars.
Yes. And we're saving trees.
Yeah. And another thing that would be on my agenda, if I were Secretary of Education, would be virtual academies. Because although some people want to live in this world where this one-to-one is the best choice, if you really know teaching and learning and you know what's best or want what's best for kids, some virtual option is important, and not just a virtual option where somebody's having tasks done like a read 180 and you do these questions. That's not what I'm talking about. And in California, we have SB 130, which says that every school has to do virtual academies. And I see ones in Pleasanton where they put one of the best teachers I know on the planet, and they said, go think big and do whatever you want to do with this virtual academy. We're giving you like the reins. Like that's the kind of leadership that they're doing. They're saying you can come, but it's only if your kids are sick. Instead of taking this and saying, oh my gosh, we have this opportunity, there's the funding, I can create this incredible thing, they're shutting it down. And again, leadership is everything. And that's where a leader in Washington, D.C. could push forward something like this, find the right people who know what they're doing, put them in the right, and let them shine.
Right, because we've been doing this in our nation for many, many years. It's gone on for a long time, and we've learned so many lessons that we can really push this forward. And the message that's given if your kids are sick tells you that this is substandard. And yeah, it's just a bad message as we move forward. Yeah, so crazy. So as you're traveling the nation, what are the topics of your keynotes? What are you talking to people about these days?
Well, I think the topic of keynotes is something I can't talk about. I'm talking to people about the future of education and the new normal, but I really think I need to step aside and let some other people talk about how we get more equitable environments, how we help kids who might not all look the same as the teacher, sort of thing, have a mirror into their own life. And I think we need to look at how we can, my friend Ken Shelton says this, how we can make sure that kids feel seen, heard, and loved. And if we can do those three things and talk about how letting a kid read a book by an author that looks like them is that, that's the message we need in this nation right now, is that every kid should be seen, heard, and loved. And we're not doing a great job of that. We're not even putting masks on some of them.
You know, it's funny because we think that it's this task that is too difficult to tackle when we talk about equity. But when you talk to Ken and he explains it, it's just so simple. It really is. It's just making sure that everyone has what they need, that everyone else has, and that they see themselves in the world. And not just others that don't look like them, and that they are valued and that they are recognized and heard. And it's not that difficult. It's really not. And it goes back to what we were talking about before. It's about communication. It's about you need the inclusivity. It's just not that difficult. It's just about that proper communication and understanding. And we can do it. I mean, it's not hard. It's just not hard.
It's not. But Holly, we do have some parents that say screen time. I don't want my kids on the computer all the time. What do you say to them?
Well, I first would ask how much screen time happens when they get home and they play video games, and which kind of screen time do you want? Do you want a screen time where they're learning to validate information online? Or they're learning to become fluent in the way that they're able to find information, validate it, present it? Or do you want them to play whatever the latest thing is, or whatever? Because usually that same parent is also having them watch an iPad while they're at dinner. So I struggle. And if you really are a parent who is like Waldorfian in your approach and you don't want your kids on the screen, what you need to understand is screens are our future. I'm sure there were people who were like, and I remember this, I had to sit 6 feet away from the TV as a kid. We now know that that's not true. But we all did it, right?
Right.
Maybe there's some good to it, but it's asking what kind of screen time do you not want them to have? And what does that mean to you in terms of things you might then give up at home?
Yeah. It's all about quality. I mean, that's pretty much, it's been a theme in what you've been talking about today. It's about quality, and you need to sit back and be retrospective and see like, all right, let's break it down. Sure, give them a little game downtime, but if that's really hogging up most of their time, let's reduce that a little bit and think about, what is happening in their education that is necessary.
Well, I don't want them on Read 180, and I'm sorry to take Read 180 down a path right now, but I don't want them going on a read a story online, answer questions online, and that's all
Multiple
they're.
choice questions, right? I know that is not what that meaningful, purposeful integration of technology is. And you mentioned Google Forms. Google Forms is great, but what are you doing? It's still that multiple choice or true, false. Which why do we try to steer away from that? Well, that's typically those are questions that are from the perspective of the teacher or the publishing company who created the questions, and not from the lens of the student. I used to have my students draw. So if they had words that dealt with their science concepts, they had to take all of those concepts and draw them into a picture or write a story with them. That really shows their understanding much better than if they're guessing in a multiple choice true false, right? So just allowing that authentic learning. And it's hard for teachers sometimes. Why do we do that? Why do we go to that? It's easier, right? It's easier to grade, right? We have all of those great tools that will magically give you a score. Okay, well, how meaningful is this score? What does this really mean? How is this really going to inform my instruction? All you're going to do is slap it in a grade book, and gosh, they didn't do that well. All right, let's move on to the next unit. What is that?
They're not really good at reading because they didn't really do that well. And now they have this thing that they are not good at reading, and they go on the rest of their life thinking that, rather than finding those strengths that they have. But even when you said drawing something, which is something I did as well, but now in 2021, we can go one step further. You've drawn these things, press record and tell me why and what they mean.
Explain it. Yep.
Absolutely.
We don't think about that because our 1985 teachers couldn't do that. See it, and now we've got to be kind of educated on those things that we can do. And even when I see blended specialists come into schools, they're not talking about that, because the truth is some of them don't have 21 years of experience doing this. They
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because when you get to a point where you say, gosh, I wish I had time to do these, one-on-one conferences with kids so I can actually hear them and talk to them. I don't have time. Well, you do. Just have them press record, and you can have them all doing it simultaneously. And then you can have your glass of wine if you want later and listen to them. There's just so many opportunities because of these one-to-one devices. And if they are in a situation where there is not a one-to-one device, no biggie. First of all, they have phones. And, of course, there are schools who still say no phones. But beyond that, if you've got one station or two stations, you've got it. It's done. It's simple.
2 Chromebooks and have those stations over there and let them press record.
Absolutely. There's always a way. And it seems like it's hard, but it ends up making things so much easier in the long run. It's just hard for sometimes people to see that it does simplify your life in so many ways.
So Holly, as we're talking about tools, I always love to go to all of your sessions at ISTE. I would just find your name and then I would mark my calendar. That's where I'm going, because you would always give us some practical ideas that I can go back to on Monday and get started. And I love that, because I love to hear your 21 years of experience really helps teachers to focus in. So you've named some tools that have been really good for you, but what are some tools that you wish all teachers could use and utilize?
Well, first of all, I think we talked about this earlier, that too many tools is overwhelming.
Yes, agree.
New to this little one-to-one environment, you pick up to 5, maybe even just 2, and you learn those this year, and you see the things that it can do. And you are, if you want to, if you have extra time and no children and you get whatever, you can learn as many as you want. But if I were to give advice to people about they should learn first, and it's hands down number 1, always going to be Flipgrid, because students need to be talking about their learning, and there's so much you can do with Flipgrid. I am a huge fan now of Canva. because Canva for Education is free for educators and students, where they get the pro account, they get access to all of these things. And students who will work in a digital world need to know how to create in a digital world. And Canva provides this amazing opportunity. So to me, Canva is going to be the new Flipgrid. If you follow my blogs and anything I do, I'm always going to be talking about Canva.
That's funny. I was just talking about Canva the other day. Like I always have these, I don't have that graphics design background. So I have these great ideas, but then I can't put it together. As soon as I go into Canva, my whole body I relax and I just get so inspired. I've been using Canva for years just to create things for, fundraising and things like that, and for teachers, but it's so amazing. I show teachers that all the time. It's free. I like the free stuff.
And then you just invite your kids in with a link and via Google Classroom or Canvas or whatever you're using. And they get access to your team, and then they're not out on their willy-nilly on Canva, and access to all those free features. I can't imagine being in a Chromebook classroom and not using Book Creator. And when we hear the term Book Creator, we think, oh, it's creating a book. I teach math. What would I need that for? Well, you could create a textbook of videos on how to do those problems. So when a student gets home and can't remember, they can watch those over and over, and it's in one place. And
Love
that. It doesn't have to be the kids creating a book creator. I love that they do that, but we have to refocus this. How do we put students at the center of their learning? And we do that by giving them the assets they need to be successful.
I actually just created a book using Book Creator, but I made it into a course, a professional development course for teachers on questioning, on styles of questioning. I tried it. I had to make this course, and I made it in, Articulate, which is a big, course creation tool. But those are for the secondary teachers. But I wanted to do something because I just sent this off virtually to a school. I want to do something that was also relatable for the primary teachers. So I created the course in Book Creator, and they loved it.
Love that.
Yeah. So this way they can engage in the course in that way, but then also learn how they can use it themselves to teach their students. And then, of course, have their students create themselves. Yeah. I love that. I show that all the time.
Oh, that's great.
What else? So you have Book Creator, you have Canva, you have Flipgrid, of course.
I love Seesaw, but
I was going to say Seesaw.
Are getting Seesaw confused, and that's because they're not digital pedagogists, and their leadership are not often very digital, and they think Seesaw is an LMS. It is not an LMS. People use it as an LMS during the remote learning, but it is a creation tool. And I hear people get Canvas, so they stopped using Seesaw, and I'm like, wait, hold on, what? So anyone listening to this, if your school or if you are a leader and you think that Seesaw is a learning management system, much like Canvas or Schoology, it is not. It is a creation tool.
So I guess that perception happened because I know it is a digital portfolio where kids can talk about their learning I know college kids who use it. I know high school kids who use it. And then, of course, the kindergartners can teach those high school and college kids to use it. It's a fantastic tool.
I don't know how it got lumped in that, and I'm so sad because I hear it all the time. We don't have Seesaw anymore because we got Canvas, and I'm like, but anyway.
Yes.
So.
Yes. And Holly, have you worked in, we've been asking you about tools. Have you worked in any areas where you kind of reflect on the tools and make sure that the tools are quality? Are there ways teachers can do that? Have you done any work in that area?
So I think the one question you have to ask with whatever tool is does it have the ability to make kids thinking visible? And if it doesn't,
yes,
that I want it.
Yes.
So that's what I'm looking for.
Yes.
Can I make their thinking visible? Can I hear from every kid? Because I should be hearing from kids. And does it give them the ability, and we don't always have to do this, but to share their work, because kids learn best from each other. When we put it behind a wall, then I know we have to do that, but then kids don't see each other's work. It's just like turning it into the teacher's desk. It's 2021.
There needs to be that communication, that collaboration that needs to always be a part of these tools. But you're also talking about equity as well, making sure that everyone can do this. So, these are certainly important themes that you've carried across this conversation for sure. And when you think about it, it's just that simple. Make sure these tools are doing these things that kids need to be doing now in this day and age. And of course, in their future, it's technology is not replacing communication. We often think that, right? We often think that it takes us away. If you're using it in the right way and you're using the right tools, it brings us together and makes us grow in our understanding in the process of learning. And then of course, in creation, which is so important. So
right now that kids who, because of devices, they're reading something like 5 times more than we read as kids. They are communicating 10 or 15 times more. I wish I had the exact numbers. And we think they're not. We think they're just looking down at the phone, but they're not. They're sending replies. They're making a Snapchat reply, whatever it is. And we just haven't shifted our minds to understand that the amount of literacy happening because of that is extraordinary. Like, it's a lot more.
That was an aha moment for me. Yes, thank you for sharing that.
It's a good one. And I know my nephew is going to 3rd grade. And, when I'm over at the house, I hear him talking and I hear him saying, oh, no, let's do this next. I'm like, who's here? Does he have friends here? No, he's doing, it's either Minecraft or Roblox. What is it called? I don't know, some other new thing that's really big, but they are doing these. It's similar to Minecraft. They are building structures and dividing up their tasks, deciding who does what, seeing how they intertwine with each other, and to get this main goal created that they have in their big master plan. It is so, of course, we have to be careful what we're talking about in the background, but other than that, it is so exciting to see this creation. And it's a learning tool but they're using it for just their fun. So again, when we try to evaluate the screen time, that's something I really wouldn't want to take away from a kid, because my gosh, he is just having so much learning taking place in that. Maybe it's too much. Maybe we should pare it down, because it is a lot. But just being able to, get together with his friends and create these things. I love it. I love it.
So Holly, let's make your learning visible here. You went back and you taught during COVID, you team taught. So my question that I'm going to ask you is one that my mentor always asks me. What has become clear through this experience to you?
What has become clear is that students can do it. Students understand. Students want to do more. And I've always known this, but especially saw it in remote learning. They are incredible. And we've got to trust them and start trusting our teachers as well, that they can do it. And also provide them the professional development so that they can, because I see a lot of schools right now getting the Chromebooks and then not bringing in really quality professional development. In fact, the school district here in San Diego, I was talking about none, basically. And everyone here.
Right. And what do you think the best kind of professional development looks like?
Oh, so I've learned that this has become clear over this pandemic, because I've done a lot of different versions or iterations. And I have found that I've seen the best growth when it's not a full day. No teacher wants to sit. And so I started to do with one school district 2 hours on Wednesdays, and we would even skip Wednesdays. So it would be 2 hours, and then 2 weeks later, 2 hours, and 2 weeks later. And I saw the biggest growth of the things they came back and asked me. And that's how I knew that there was growth, because they were asking to tweak things and do things that I never know if I go for 8 hours and then leave.
Right.
Sustained model of little learning that they can go try, come back and tweak. Try and tweak. You're going to give 8 hours. They're going to take away one thing. You've wasted your, I'm sorry, but I think you wasted your money.
That's a great, absolutely. Yes. Great tip. Great.
It's so true. And you know what? I also noticed that, when you are doing, just like in the classroom, when we do like a whole group instruction for 30 minutes or even 20 minutes in some cases, you're going to lose the kids. It's always the amount of, the number of minutes equivalent to the age of the student is really all you have in terms of attention span. You need to think about that with adults as well. So if you have kids, 7-minute mini lesson for 7-year-olds, that's really it. And then actually even less than that. I don't know if technology has kind of reduced, but also it's just learning theory. Just as you said, you need to take a concept and be able to process it and then use it meaningfully. So you can't do that when you just throw a bunch of stuff at people, at kids or adults. So it needs chunked content, process, put it into practice, reflect on it, give me more, right? That's really the model that needs to be. And I think more and more schools are realizing that. I don't see as many full day PDs in one topic, but instead ongoing professional development, not those drive-bys, as I like to call them, but like, okay, here's a bunch of stuff. Good luck, guys. I'll see you next year. No, they don't work anymore. And, a lot of schools will do that because they think it's cost effective, or they just like to get it, check it off. Okay, we did the compliance, right? We did this. That's good for nothing. Teachers need scaffolding too. They need that hand-holding. They don't want just to have content thrown at them. They need that coaching and mentoring model also. They need to, have that opportunity to, be engaged with that content, but then also have hopefully that trainer come in and, just as you said, co-teach with them, be that mentor, work with them. That's really the best model. And hopefully we'll be seeing more of that because it really just makes the most sense.
Absolutely. Well, Holly, as we start to land this plane for this podcast, you are everywhere that everyone wants to be. How can we find you and connect with you and get your ideas?
So I am on all of the socials and I have the same handle, so you can find me everywhere. It's at PDU. But I will say my favorite new way of reaching people is TikTok. And TikTok is not supposed to be where you go to watch dances. You can, and they're interesting, or, there's a lot of political stuff on there, but you can learn to make awesome drinks. You can learn to make whatever. You can also learn how to teach. And so I like to do these 1-minute TikToks that kind of give you an inspiration and an idea. And you don't have to spend a lot of time. It's 1 minute. Sometimes it goes over a minute, but I try to keep them.
So Jerry and I are, and people who watch our podcast or listen to our podcast every week, they know our struggles with TikTok. We're trying to learn from every person. So we want to know, what is the best hashtag to use?
So hashtags are different depending on your content, but I hashtag teachers of TikTok. However, with TikTok hashtags, if you get in one that has let's say 51 million, and it'll tell you how many posts have been, and that's over time, it's not that day. And that can be good. But if you get in one where a lot of people have got in at the same time, you might not be seen. So you've got to do different big, medium, and small. And some people believe in the whole medium hashtag thing. But I like to use teachers of TikTok. Right now I'm using back to school. I like EduTalk because it's not just about teachers of TikTok. And I like TikTok teachers. And I like, I'm trying to think, there's another one that I really like, but I can't think of it right now. Sorry. But once you start putting in your hashtags in TikTok, it'll recommend other ones. So that helps. But TikTok's the kind of thing, just like Twitter or Instagram, that you've got to go study. You've got to go see what people are doing and then use their hashtags if you see that one happens to go viral or something. And it's really easy to get an audience on TikTok if you just keep posting. You have to post once a day, and then TikTok goes, start trying, and it bumps you up.
Okay, that's the key. We'll have to get on it.
We do, Jerry. We have to.
So we're going to do one of Holly's podcast because I wrote down many cool terms that she used today that I think we could incorporate into TikToks.
Okay. Now, are you on Clubhouse?
I am on Clubhouse.
Okay. Because on the Wednesday that podcast airs at 9 p.m. Eastern, we do this topic live. So we're hoping you can join us. And that way people can engage with our content here. So hopefully you'll be able to do that.
Yeah.
All right, you're in. So Holly Clark, Clubhouse, Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Be there or be square. All right.
That's
good.
right.
Exciting.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Holly. It was a great conversation. It's always good to see you. You always inspire me. And I know you will have inspired many, many other people as well. So thanks for joining us.
So much.
Having me.
You bet.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify and subscribe to us on YouTube.